Alright, I'm going to be doing a map guide for Numbani. It is an old Overwatch 1 map, but it hasn't showed up in Overwatch 2 yet, and I know there's a bunch of new Overwatch 2 players, so I figured I'd make a video, and I'm trying to keep this one to be relatively quick. Alright, so we're going to be talking one point at a time, so we'll do first point, then second point, then third point, and I will do attack and defense for a point, and then talk a little bit about the tank matchups, like as a tank. Again, this guide's mostly for tanks, but we'll talk a little bit about possibly other positioning, but mostly for tanks and where you should be going. So for starters, this is the attacking spawn. This is all dead space from here all the way to here. Basically, you'll never do any fighting. Okay, like I have never seen a fight that seriously happens anywhere out in this space. This is all effectively dead space. You'll just run from here straight forwards. As defense, don't try to hold this. There's way too many angles that they can attack you from. Plus, there's the mini in here and then the mega over here. I don't think I've ever seen someone take a mega here in my life. They have the stairwell to get above. Generally speaking, teams never hold here. At least in Overwatch 1, they never did. So, starting over here. On defense, you'll typically have someone set up over here to start spamming, and then over here to do some crossfire. This is not a strong hold. This is a very, very soft hold, and as the teams advance, you will back up. Okay? So let's talk about defense for the point. If you are a brawl or poke tank, you're probably going to be set up right here. Okay? So let's talk about the different lanes. So this right here is main. Okay? This is main. This is underneath. This is upper. Okay? And then this route is coast. So starting from here is where you have access to all those routes. Okay? So again, underneath is this way. You go up the stairs to go upper, or you go coast, or you go main. And if you're vertical, you can go like kind of upper main, like to the right over here. So on defense, again, if you are a brawl or poke tank, you're probably going to be set up right here. And the reason being is that this affords you the best option to contest 3 of the possible routes. You can contest upper, you can contest coast, and you can drop. If you hear them, you can drop and contest under. Okay? The only thing that you can't do anything about is defending to the left. But as a tank, to some extent, you just need to give up left. It's actually super hard to hold left in any situation, especially now that there's only one tank instead of 2 tanks. So back in the old days, you'd see like bunker comps where Orisa would set up right here. I don't think it's viable anymore. So generally speaking, as a tank, set up right here. Right, so if you're running Sigma, Orisa, Rhine, Zarya, etc., like play here. Now, let's say that you are not playing, you're playing Diva or Winston. In this case, I think you should set up here. And you should check which way they're going and get ready to contest them. If they are going main, great. You're going to step back from the edge. You're going to let them come into the point because they're going to walk through point like this. Like let's say they have a Rhine and the Rhine's like, oh, I'm just going to run to point. Okay? Then you zap/drop onto their backline, right? For Rhine, for Diva, Doomfist, etc. Ball, again, has its own totally different playstyle where you're going to be scouting where they go. But for most of the dive mobility tanks, that's what you want to do. Now, you might think, okay, why don't I play Sigma right here? Because you'd have a really great opportunity to shoot down. That's correct. But the problem is, if you go Sigma and they go upper, you can't do anything to stop this. You just can't put enough pressure on them from here to prevent them from simply just walking straight out and doing whatever they want. So for the dive tanks, again, you can set up right here, and then you have the opportunity to go. Now, imagine that you're playing dive, again, still. They decide to go upper over here. Then what you want to do is you want to drop low ground, wait for the tank to advance forwards like this, or like let's say there's a Winston, and the Winston dives over here. Then you counter dive into their team. Okay, so like as Winston, for example, I drop, I wait. I see, their Winston go or their Rhine spread out. Then I go for backline. Okay, same thing for Diva, but Diva actually is a little more flexible because Diva you could conceivably play here if you realize that they're running dive and just counter dive the Winston or Diva or whatever they got. If they are going underneath as dive, or rather when you're playing dive, then you want to play over here and you want to zap/shoot them as they come out, right? And you can even shoot the tank there instead of just going for the back line. If they go coast, same thing, right? Sit up over here and then do whatever. The common theme through all of this is for all the tanks is hold high ground as long as you can. That's a pretty good default theme in general for Overwatch. Hold high ground as long as you can and drop low ground only when you absolutely have to. Now, let's imagine again that you're playing up here and you're playing a brawl or poke tank and you see that they are going coast, let's say. Well, if you go coast, great. Just sit up here, right? Shoot, fight. If the Rhine starts coming in, depending on what type of brawl or poke tank you are, you might decide to stay here and try to kill backline, or you might decide to back up and then contest them on point. Okay, depends on a lot of different variables. It's really hard to figure out right now. If they go underneath, if they're trying to come this way, same thing, right? You play up top, you're like, oh shoot, they're coming underneath. Then you drop, you start poking, right? Or swing your hammer or whatever you got, and then you go and you play this, and you just keep them from getting a good line out. I think it's very important on first point Numbani is there are very, very tight chokes. It's actually quite difficult to take first point on Numbani, and it's not uncommon to fail to take the point on offense because all of these chokes have really strong disadvantages. This choke is brutal to come through, right? Main is a shooting gallery if you just set up your whole team up top. Same thing for going underneath, right? If you go underneath, then everyone just stands up top, right? And they just rain fire down you, or they just stop you at this choke and your team can't get through. Now, let's talk about offense, right? So from an offense perspective, how do we kind of take this with all of our disadvantages? Well, number one is how do I take space away from the enemy? What's the space that I want? Ideally, there's two critical spaces that matter. This high ground, main, or rather upper, right? And then the right high ground. So okay, like close high ground, far high ground, okay? To take close high ground, you can either dive from main, right? You walk up here, you go here, and then you just dive on top. Or, as a brawl, you can go up top here, brawl / poke, and then push them off this way. Okay? How do you clear the far high ground once you've taken this high ground? That gets more complicated. There's two primary ways. Number one is, which is the most common, is you simply drop the point and force somebody to come down, right? Somebody has to come down or else you're going to cap it. Whoever comes down, you kill them. And then you just wait for the next person to come down and then do it again. If that doesn't work, right, or you choose not to do that, you can also go through here into the back and go upper high ground and then push them out this way as brawl, right? So for example, you're running like Ryan Lucio, this is a good opportunity to do that. I think Ramatra probably has a reasonable shot at doing this as well, and that's your options. As dive here, right, again, you can dive this way, right? But the problem is the tank is usually over here. The support, often an Ana, will be playing over here, like Ana, Ashe, Soldier, in which case you're actually better off coming through here and then jumping this high ground instead. Okay? There is another neat little trick if you're having a lot of trouble here, is that you can dive from this, go wide to the left, and then dive this way, right? You don't necessarily have to go wide to the left, you can also cling here, right? And then dive this way, go pick up the Mega, because you'll definitely have taken some chip damage, come back, and then you can dive up here, or potentially even go through the back if you really so choose, right? And come here to point. There's another option here for dive is to dive over here and tag the point, right? Put down bubble, for example, if you're Winston, and try to force them to come down and then react to that. I don't think that's a great option, but in some situations, it could be effective. Okay, so let's say you're getting jammed up, right? You get jammed up top. I think the critical thing is that your team just needs to split up if they have a good lineup to stop you. So for example, if they're running Rhine, Junkrat, for example, you're just never going to get through this choke. Like there's just no way that you can get through this choke for basically any lineup, unless you're running Rush with like Lucio. In which case, the guidance should be to split your team up and have them go different avenues, right? I think as a tank, especially as a non-dive tank, you should basically never go this way. Dive has another option, I didn't mention this, is to come this way and then dive up top from here. You can also walk over here and then try to dive. I wouldn't recommend that. In that case, I would just say as dive to just go underneath. This room is rarely contested by the defense. It's just really hard for them to get there and be able to react like if you go a different direction. So generally, offense can take this room for free. It's getting out here that's the problem. So again, thinking of the lanes, right? If I have the option of going underneath, I have the option of going up top, right? As brawl tanks, I can even go coast. It's typically not a great plan, but that's a possibility. As dive, I can go underneath and play up and then dive from there. I can go from main and also dive left or right. I would typically choose to play dive here. I think historically, dive has been the most effective set of tanks for this, but you could definitely brawl. I think the priority for Dahl is that you must take close high ground. If you fail to take close high ground, there's basically no chance that you'll ever take this point, and you'll just get absolutely steamrolled. There are niche strategies where you can, for example, Lucio, he knows that Lucio's part of so many of these strategies. Lucio, run your way over here as Brawl, and then run up, and then go up here, and then go back, and then push them off, which is also viable. If you can pull it off, it's fairly effective. There's not much they can do about it. So I think that covers the first point pretty well. Covering health packs, Med pack or mega health pack here, very, very important on offense. This mega, also very important on offense. For the defense side, they have basically no healing here, except for this one mini in this room. That's pretty much the only health pack that the defense is going to have access to. So the offense has a very strong healing advantage for this point. That's probably their only real advantage on this point. All right, let's imagine that you cap this payload. Starts moving, comes down. So the defense spawn here for first point, but after they cap this point, they'll go all the way over to, oh yeah, they spawn all the way in at their regular spawn, right? Just like many points, spawn for points 2 and 3 are the same. So they'll have to run a really long way. So this is the longest spawn that they have in the game to get all the way over here. This spot right here is rarely contested. Generally speaking, you can get this away for free unless the defending team got wiped initially and they're planning on doing a close fight for some reason. But generally speaking, this is easy to contest. If you are being spawn camped, one thing to think about is that you can go out the backside and then come up to go push them off. Because generally when being spawn camped, they're going to sit on this bridge and just shoot down at your team. So, go vertical, a tank with vertical mobility, come out this way, and then jump up top. Anyway, you're going to push the corner, and your first fight is going to be somewhere in this stretch. If they are playing close range tanks like Rhine, they'll fight at this corner right here. Okay? If they're playing a poke tank, you might get a little more space out here as they just kite you more. All right? Now, this choke is usually not that hard to move it a bit. It's hard to move it all the way without popping an ultimate of some kind or getting a pick. The most important element of this, I would say, is the mega over here. I think mega control is really, really critical. If on offense, if you let the defenders like DPS take this mega and sit here and pepper you, you'll never get anywhere. And you have to figure out a way to clear out the right side, which is either you as a tank, especially if you have dive, right? Or Brawl just running at them, or having your DPS take care of it. But no matter what, you have to claim this space over here, or else you're in big trouble. Now, on defense, you don't generally expect to be able to hold this. It's like very, very rare that you ever see a full team hold here. You're just about burning resources, right? Force ultimates, right? Buy time, try to take advantage of mistakes. And I think it's important is don't try to survive here. It's a very long run to get to cover anywhere. So if you're losing a fight, just die, right? Just go ahead and die on cart and respawn and come back. Now, high ground is only marginally important here because the high ground does not have any cover on either side, and it's quite far away with not necessarily a great angle because most of the fighting is going to happen very, very close right here. Once they turn the corner, they'll have the cart and this jeep, this floating jeep as cover, so it's not going to be that great. The only exception I would say is Widow Hanzo can probably do work from these two angles, but other than that, most other hit scans are not going to be super effective. Ashe as well. Okay, now that you push forward, that's the first corner. Second corner is here. This is where things are going to get very dicey and complicated. So for starters, talking about mini health packs right here, there's one mini health pack right here. Defenders usually use this. Offense rarely gets to make use of that. There's one mini there. There's one mini here. There's a mega out here. And then there's a mini in here. And then a mini over here. But we'll cover that later, okay? So second corner is basically this fight right here. And this is where some fights will stall out. Like sometimes you'll have games where offense will stall out right here. This is where high ground becomes increasingly important. This high ground, previously, people were too far away, not that useful. But now that you're close, this is very useful. Like a Junkrat or Cassidy up here shooting at you can be very problematic. And again, this is a scenario where playing like traditional, like ground-bound tanks like, Rhine, Orisa, Zarya may not be getting a ton of value here if the other team is choosing to use high ground. Sometimes they won't. If they choose the high ground, I think that you really need to think about how much value you're getting. Like if you're absolutely melting the front line, go ahead. But otherwise, this could be very problematic, and I think you should think about switching. I will say, to clear this high ground, you go to the right, and then this stairwell leads up and over, and then you can clear this high ground, and then continue pushing over here. Okay? You will find that DPS and supports will be littered throughout these little rooms as this push continues, because there's many health packs, there's lots of cover, and they can get away easily. It's pretty hard to chase people down in this situation. So it's really about moving the cart to here, and then figuring out how to do the last corner, quote-unquote corner, right? This was first corner, this was second corner, now we have to figure out how to do this. And again, this is where quite a few games will stall out as well. This point is all about high ground. Right? You see all the high ground over here? This is where Brawl really crashes to a halt unless the other team doesn't have anyone who can stay on cart to stop you from moving it forwards. Right? So for example, if they're playing a Sigma on high ground and you're playing Rhine, You can honestly just shield and move the cart all the way to the end and force the Sigma to drop and kill the Sigma, and then you win. But other than that, I think dive here becomes really, really effective. Except as Brawl, if you're willing to coordinate with your team, come high ground this way and then push them off. In which case, that will probably win you the game, right? Like if I come Ryan here and I'm playing with like let's say a Cassidy and a Soldier, I come up the stairs, come up this way, and I set up my Cassidy and Soldier on high ground, and then I drop. We probably won the fight. There's almost nothing they can do to stop that. The high ground is super strong here, but the low ground is very, very weak for defense. They have only this small cover next to the point, which is also very, very close to the point, so it puts them in danger to tanks. And then this corner sucks because you see the weird angle here where they can't really do anything without wide peeking, and there's no cover anywhere. So for example, if you chuck a Diva Bomb here, everyone dies. Right? I think Diva's like probably really, really good at this point for the vertical mobility and just the lack of cover on main. Occasionally you'll see supports also playing over here. DPS have the opportunity to flank this way as well, and then put pressure on the enemy. Again, mini health packs, right? That one right there is probably grabbed a lot. This one's grabbed a lot, and then this one is sometimes grabbed on offense. So again, as a Brawl tank, I gotta think, hey, do I need to go high ground? If I need to go high ground, I should probably think to just take the stairs and go up. If I think I can get away without high ground, I just push it forwards. I don't have to go main, especially if the cart's already moved up. I can go left and through. To force a lot of fights out there. Don't forget there's also a mega health pack here. As Brawl tanks you can't get this, but Ball probably grabs this health pack more than any other health pack in the game. Doomfist as well. As a quick note, there are rollouts that actually can take you around the outside of the map. So Ball could easily take this way. You could theoretically have Winston with Primal Rage going this way, and it works in either direction, right? If you're a Ball here on defense, you get lit up. You can just swing over here, get the mega, and then reset back into the fight. Anyway, Brawl, try to move the cart, but in general, you're probably going to need to go high ground at some point. Go high ground, clear high ground, then drop down to the cart. As dive, you can do the close dive up here, right? You could dive here first to stage, then come out here, and then dive. You can go around the back this way. Oh, actually, yeah. You can go around the back this way, and then from underneath, dive on top of them. Also as Brawl, for the record, if you get the cart super close, this is rare, but you could come up these stairs and push them off that way. But it's very odd, like that'd be an unusual situation if the cart was this close, but you couldn't move it, that you had the time to go up the stairs. Possible, but unlikely. As dive, you can also come from the left, use this doorway to jump out, or go this way and then jump out, left or right, depending on what you need to do. Okay, you've capped the second point. Let's talk about final point. So this stretch basically never gets fought in. It's just death for anyone who stands here, offense or defense. This is the first corner you need to worry about. This is the second corner, final point. First corner, as always, right? Brawl, tanks are probably all playing. Brawl and Poke are both playing close. This is where dive on defense gets much, much weaker because you just don't have the opportunity to dive in here, right? It's going to be all open space, no verticality, no way to break LOS. So as Winston, if I jump in here, I put down Bubble gets killed like immediately, and then I get obliterated. So dive gets much, much weaker here. Your only option, right, especially if you don't have a way to play the corner, is to stand up here, let them come through under you, and then go for backline. I generally don't think that's a good strategy. I think it gives it way too much space, but it is possible to do. Poke tanks, I think, are really good here because there's a ton of space to kite. Okay, so like Zarya, Sigma are just like super strong, right? Hog here would be really good. Again, just no cover here, at just constantly kiting and applying damage to the enemy and trying to get picks. So on defense, again, like you really don't have a lot of space here. Just do this. Of note, there's a mini here and there's a mega over here. Sometimes your DPS will be able to sit up in this room. It is relatively easy to clear them out because you can isolate them, jump over here, and then kill them. But sometimes your DPS will sit up in the room. As a tank, I would never sit up in this room. I think this is suicide. So as tank, I would always play right here, recognize that you're a long way from cover, and always think, hey, if I get pressured too hard, I have to make sure that I'm already early rotating to get back to here or to get back to here, right? Most likely here. You really don't want to give up to here until you absolutely have to. So try to retreat back into this doorway. On offense, how do I take this? Well, this is not one of the hardest corners to take. I would say the second corner is harder. So you can often just like push the cart just by swinging or whatever, shooting and forcing them back here. If you are playing dive, right, I would strongly encourage you to go high ground, right? Jump from low ground to high ground, and from here, use the stage and then go after the back line. right? Or just zap straight down at them, and that will often force them back. Another option you have for dive is to jump over here, pick up the mega to reset your whatever, the poke damage you got, then come back out and then threaten the rotation, right? Go back here and then dive in, or right, fake the rotate so they start looking for you, come back and then dive in. Okay. The other option is from here. You can also jump up top. Right? You're going to be exposed to backline, but if you have bubble or DM, you can stay up here for a little bit. Just anything to apply pressure. So as Brawl, again, push them through here. If you can push to this corner, you'll have the mini as well, which will help you a lot to continue moving. Second corner. So typically there's only going to be one real fight here because the cards can move. It's like not a long distance. You only have one major fight between here and here. But it might be like a rolling, like you pick one, so they back off. They pick one, so you can't keep moving. And then you kind of are going to stall out right here. So this is where things get really, really dicey. And I think tough for the defense to continue holding here as a tank. I think tanks have a really bad time here because, again, there's no cover whatsoever. You pretty much have to be playing the payload. Like, the payload is your cover, and you basically have to play a tank that can play very, very close right now to survive. Your DPS, though, will have a field day because this angle is crazy strong for the DPS, and it's very, very hard to force them out of that angle, right? So from here, they also have the mini health pack, but they have excellent cover and a good rotation path to retreat if they have to. So that's really the prime issue. So, again, for second point, as on offense, I'm going to try to move forward as Brawl, right? I'm going to get choked up right here. The DPS on the corner, I probably can't deal with the DPS. Like, you could try using a reset spear or something like that, but in general, I think it's pretty tough. All right, sorry, this video now is a second part due to technical difficulties. So, again, I was saying that as Brawl, you probably can't deal with DPS that are over here, right? You probably are fighting mostly mirrored against the tank, moving forwards. Once the card gets to around here, you have the option of potentially going this way, but most likely you'll actually probably cut this way or this way. This last part is very defense favored. Their spawns, their spawns are very close here, and they have high ground advantage inherently. This is pretty much where all the ultimates get popped right here, right? This is very strong for things like Grav, May Blizzard, Diva Bomb, etc. are really, really important to move it the final. Flux are very important to move the final bit over here. Again, you're probably going to have to go high ground at least briefly to start putting pressure on the supports and DPS who are playing over here. So you'll probably be running up mid and then going left or going right accordingly. So for dive tanks, you might be going for mid and using the card as cover. Again, the card's the only piece of cover here. And using that to jump over like that, or potentially to jump over to the left. Another option is to take the inside route here, which is also viable for Brawl if you get jammed up, is to take it, like, let's say they're running a Bastion here on right side. You can go left in here, clear off the left side, go here, and like poke from this side, and then use that as an opportunity to potentially take the point. Dive also has the option. I think Brawl basically will never go this way, but Dive will quite frequently go this way as well, and use that to jump here or jump here. But fundamentally, I think this final point is basically all about ultimates. It's very rare to just straight up kill the enemy to be able to walk in and take it, just because their spawn is very, very close. They have the high ground advantage, and it's really, really tough. So from a defensive perspective, you hold that second point over here. You want to generally just mirror the other tank, not let them go anywhere. You're not probably that that big a playmaker here because of the way the map is designed. Again, your supports and DPS have just far more freedom to rotate and have better cover than you. You're probably pretty exposed out here. I think Brawl I think Brawl is viable here. Poke tanks do really, really well here. You get lots of open space and you can kite around the cart. Dive here, I think, again, is a lot harder to pull off, with the exception of being a Ball, because Ball can abuse the mini over here, the mini in the room, and the mega over here as an opportunity to hold final point. And for the regular dive tanks, like Winston, it's like hard to jump in because then, like, how do you get out, right? You just jump back to flat ground and you get absolutely lit up. Diva is like okay here. I think Diva Bomb is good, but Diva itself is not great. I think Sigma's really strong here. Zarya's really strong here. Orisa's strong here. Ryan is okay. There's long sight lines, so it's not like the best situation for Ryan. It's very common for you to run like Torbs here. There's a bunch of sneaky spots where you can put turrets that are like really hard for the enemy to see. I think they changed the layout, maybe the terrain a little bit in the rework, but there's definitely like weird spots where you used to like be able to really struggle seeing through. I think they changed the vegetation here, but you can have turrets over here. I would say if you see their tanks going left, I would definitely mirror and shut them off, right, and prevent them from getting any further. You don't want them to take this. This high ground honestly is not as valuable as you might imagine. I would say relatively rarely used, but potentially strong. Played up there. Okay, I think that's everything I got for Numbani. Hopefully this is helpful.